Don't stress, live life one day at a time. Don't drink or drug and you'll be fine.
Welcome back to Staying Sober with Papa Joey. Today I want to talk about the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. My take on the 12 steps. Today we're going to do steps number 8 and 9. Step number 8, made a list of persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step number 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Now, before we go any further, remember this. There's truly only one way to get sober and stay sober, and that is you don't put a drink or a drug in you no matter what, right? Don't drink or use no matter what, and no matter what means no matter what. But doing these steps will help you go through some areas of your life where you may need to make some adjustments, and we'll just keep it at that. So, step number 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Here's what you need to do: grab a piece of paper and a pen, go someplace quiet. Don't beat yourself up when you do this step, because it will bring up some memories. What you need to do is just think back about all the times you may have gotten into trouble, you did something to some people, and you know that you owe that person or persons an apology. We all know that there's somebody there that we should really apologize to, and we don't. Maybe it's our pride, our ego. We can't stand the person, and who cares what I said or did to them? No, 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 no. Be honest with yourself and just make a list of people that you feel that you need to apologize to, even if you don't like the person. And this only means who you need to apologize to, not that somebody needs to apologize to you, because it's not really about them. It's all about you. Let me explain something that happened to me personally that changed my whole attitude about telling somebody that I'm sorry. I was almost 2 years sober. I went up to Syracuse to visit my family. I live in Florida, and my dad was ill. My dad was basically dying of colon cancer. While I was up there, he was in the hospital. So when I was at the hospital, there was a group of people there, talking to my dad. And a group of people were getting ready to leave, and my mom followed them out of the room. So my dad and I were just talking. And then all of a sudden, he started to tear up. And I'm like, "Are you all right, Dad? What's going on?" And he says, "I just want to tell you how sorry I am that, there are times that, I said things to you or did things, and I just want," and I had to stop him. I said, "Dad, there's no need to apologize to me for anything. You've been a really good father. You were always there for me. Please, everything is fine." And, he had some tears coming out of his eyes. And to be honest, so did I. When I was on the plane back to Florida, I was thinking about my dad, and I thought to myself, man, how difficult is that? You're basically on your deathbed. He knew his time was coming, and all he could think of was apologizing to me. And maybe there were other people he wanted to apologize to. From that moment on, I said, if I owe somebody an apology, I'm going to give it to him. I don't want to be on my deathbed thinking I owe somebody an apology. And that was pretty powerful for me. And trust me, there are many times in my sobriety I had to apologize for my actions or some of the stuff that I said or did, but I always did it right away. So be that person. If you need to apologize to somebody, apologize to them. But you have to mean it. And we know when we were drinking, or at least for me, I would apologize plenty times for my behavior when I was drinking. The bad part was I kept on drinking. So the apologies basically meant nothing to the person. Yeah, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'll never say that again. I'll never do that again. I promise," blah, 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 blah. But when you're drinking or if you're drugging, you know the scenario. Eventually, these people go, "Yeah, listen, whatever. Keep doing your thing." So after doing your list, the next step says, number 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. There will be people that we know we owe an amends to, an apology to, but they have passed. And unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about that. Now, this other thing, to injure them or others, that's because sometimes if we owe somebody an apology and we haven't seen them in a while or whatever the situation was, if we go to that person, that might create more of a problem for you and that person. So sometimes it's better to just leave it alone. Like, for instance, let's say you were involved with your friend's spouse. The spouse never found out, but the person that you were involved with, you two ended it, but the other spouse didn't know a thing about it. Of course, you're not going to go up to that person and say, listen, I'm getting sober and I'm trying to do these steps and I owe you an apology because, you know, I slept with your wife, or if you're a woman, I slept with your husband or whatever. You don't do that. Because then not only you're going to injure the husband, now the wife gets dragged into it. Now she knew what her responsibility was, and she chose not to tell her husband. Sometimes that happens, and they just let it go, and hopefully, their relationship is strong. So you don't want to do something like that. Another thing, if you stole from a company that you worked for or from people that you knew, that's a tough one, because sometimes if you go and apologize, and former employer or your present employer might say, okay, I respect that. Maybe you got to make restitution. Or depending on if other people maybe suffered because of what you did, you may have some repercussions legally. So you got to think it through. You see, what happens is, when we're drinking or drugging, we don't give a shit about anybody else. And a lot of times we don't give a shit about ourselves. We just are concerned about the way we feel at the moment because we're drinking. Again, I never did drugs. Drugs did not smoke a little pot. It bored me. It made me tired. So I didn't care about it. Drinking, on the other hand, I love to drink and I love my buzz. We do a lot of harm. And again, we didn't give a shit what anybody else thought of us when we were, drinking or drugging. We have to own up, realize the harm that we did to others and to ourselves. And we got to keep that in the back of our mind when something triggers us to think we want to pick up or drink again. We got to remember what I always say: don't drink or use no matter what, and no matter what means no matter what. Now, if you're watching this and you're still drinking or drugging and you want to stop and you're like, I don't know what the fuck to do. I'm watching these videos and I want to stop, but I can't. Well, you can, you just don't want to. So if you are serious, then wherever you are, just end what you're doing. If you're drinking or drugging, now throw the shit away. Make a promise to yourself that you're done. Make a promise that from this moment on, you're going to be a person who no longer drinks or uses no matter what. No matter what means no matter what. No frickin' excuses. And then start thinking about one or two people, not a lot, that you have harmed, or one or two situations that you really screwed up in, that possibly ruined your life for somebody else's. And you got to keep that memory fresh early on, every time you think about putting a drink or a drug in you, because you got to have something to motivate you. For me, it was my last drunk. There were plenty of drunks before that, but to me, I said that was it. I can no longer do that. And then 2 days later, I found myself walking into an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. Might be a good start for you. We're not saying you have to stay there, but I've always said this about Alcoholics Anonymous. Number one, there were always people around that you can talk to. Number two, it didn't cost me a dime. There's always somebody there that'll help you. That's why when I hear people putting down AA, there was a lot of things in AA I didn't like, and there were some people I didn't like. But overall, it was a good place to go to early on in sobriety to get sober. Because, see, once you figure out, like I did, once I figured out I can't drink anymore, that first drink will get me drunk. Now, if you never heard that saying before, all that means is you can't get to the 10th drink without picking up the first drink. So that's why we say the first drink will get us drunk, because we pick up the first one, then there'll be the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. And when I quit drinking, this is not to brag or anything, I was only about 150 pounds at that time. I could polish off a half a case to a case of beer a day without any problems. It took a lot for me to get my buzz going and to keep my buzz going. So early on, the only thing I could focus on was I don't want to go back to that last drunk. I don't want to do that. And little by little, it got easier and easier. And that's why I just always say I don't drink or use. I wasn't into drugs, but I use the term use for this channel. Don't drink or use no matter what. And no matter what means no matter what. No excuses. Go make a list if you need to. You need to tell somebody you're sorry. Go talk to them and mean it. You're doing it for yourself. If they don't want to accept it, that's on them. You did your part, and just keep moving forward. But always remember, and I'll say this as many times as I need to, because I want to be that guy that annoys you from YouTube, that tells you if something comes in your mind and you're thinking about picking up a drink or a drug, you're out someplace and people are drinking and drugging and you want to be just like them, you're going to see me saying to you, don't drink or use no matter what. And no matter what means no matter what. Until I see you the next time, have yourselves a good day. And
think about your serenity. Be grateful for your sobriety.